Here's the latest on our case concerning our FBI raid. The Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press once again batting for Project Veritas. You saw the headlines. 2 people pled guilty to conspiracy to transport stolen goods across state lines. The government claims they are our sources. But in a highly detailed 12-page filing, the government explains the lengths these 2 individuals went to, quote, make some money from, unquote, the Biden diary, even going so far as to explain the 2 were hoping to get upwards of $200,000 from Project Veritas. And now, with this 12-page filing by the government, why must anything, let alone everything, said in the affidavit still be secret? Well, on September 22nd, Judge Torres agreed that was a question worth answering and ordered the United States government to respond to the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press's position that the government's 12-page information documents warrants unsealing of the affidavit. The government responded on September 30th, writing, quote, the recent public filing of charges against 2 individuals should not materially affect this court's analysis of the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press's position. Why not, you ask? The government's grand jury investigation remains ongoing as to individuals other than Harris and Kurlander. You heard that right. The government is arguing that for so long as their investigation is ongoing, the public has no right to know the basis by which the government took unprecedented steps to trample on freedom of the press in raiding not 1, not 2, but 3 separate journalists and seizing all of their devices without care for established Supreme Court precedent and even case law in the Southern District of New York that makes it abundantly clear that journalists may legally solicit and receive newsworthy information which might have been stolen. But it gets better. This, they argue, is because even if the court were to unseal a part of the affidavit, it, quote, would provide little meaningful information to the public, unquote, because the public already knows. I mean, you have to hand it to them for making this argument with a straight face. The public doesn't deserve to know because the public already knows. Got it. The Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press responded with a blistering critique merely days ago. When the Reporters Committee first moved to unseal the search warrant materials on November 15th, 2021, a great deal of information about the government's investigation was publicly known. Almost a year has gone by now. And in that time, a huge amount of additional information about the scope, targets, factual predicates, and methods of the government's investigation has become public, both through investigative reporting and the government's own disclosures in court filings. According to the government, none of this matters. Given everything the public knows or can infer about the government's investigation at this point in time, it is absurd for the government to continue to argue, as it does, that the search warrant materials cannot be publicly filed even in redacted form. We applaud the Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press for continuing to fight for public access. We applaud their defense of the First Amendment. We applaud the ACLU's defense of the First Amendment and putting principle over partisanship. The public has a right to know what its government is doing and has a right to see the probable cause that was used to obtain search warrants against American journalists doing their job. And the public's right to know that supersedes the government's right to keep those affidavits private.